Have you ever had a fear that you knew, if I don't face this, something might happen that's bad? Or if I don't face this, I'm not going to be able to experience what's on the other side? If that's you, come on in. Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, True Cost. And today we're going to talk about what happens when you don't approach the fear. Now, I'm going to just tell you a story. There are many things in my life personally that has made me afraid. I can say things like leadership, becoming a husband, becoming a father, being a business owner, confronting my own trauma. All of those things have made me afraid. And the reason I think they've made me afraid can all be boiled down to you don't know what's on the other side. So as much as we might hear people say things like, just go ahead and start that business, get married, it's the best thing ever. Being a father is great. Gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable. As great as that sounds and as cool as that could be, the fear of the unknown is a real thing, and it usually paralyzes most people, including myself at times. So I was recently wanting to get better and still want to get better at leading, being a better leader, leading from a place of not just passion, but a place of strategy, a place of serving. And I was reading a book. It's called The Secret by Kenneth Blanchard, aka or PS, either or. If you can get your hands on any book that Kenneth Blanchard writes, or he's a co-author, do so. He's really, really amazing on leadership. And his books are usually real small, but they're packed with good lessons. And for me, I love anybody who can tell good stories. He's really good at it. So in this book, he talks about a lady named Debbie. She's a new leader in his position, and everything's falling apart. Fast forward, she ended up getting to this mentor who's the head of the company, and he's telling her about serving and things like that. But he gets to this point in the story where he says, and I'm paraphrasing, in order to be a great leader, you have to allow the people following you to know where you're going. And then you have to help them implement it so that the vision becomes a reality. Now, what does that have to do with fear at all? The fear of the unknown, if you don't know exactly where you're going or where you want to be, leading anybody can be very, very scary. The reason why it's scary is because you usually don't have all of the steps figured out. Yes, you may have a year down the line, you may have 2 years down the line, you may just have even 6 months, but sometimes not having all the answers can be really, really scary. So here's something that I started to do to overcome that fear of the unknown. The first thing I did was I wrote down, if I make the decision to move forward, what are the worst things that could happen? And none of those things have been death. So if it's not death, it's like, okay, so you might lose some time, you might lose some money, you might lose a limb. I'm not going to lose a limb. You may have some loss. If you view loss as this is data that I'm collecting for something that's coming up, that's greater, cool, then you're good. Now, with that being said, I will write down what happens, what's the worst thing that can happen. And then I will write down also, what's the best thing that could happen if I march through this fear? And usually the outcome makes me feel that I should start focusing on that, because I always have an option. I could focus on what's going to happen what happen if I fail, or what's going to happen if I succeed. And with both options, there still is a decision that needs to be made. You still have to go ahead and make the decision to move forward. So with that, the third one, which is C, the first one was, what's the worst that could happen? B is, what's the best that could happen? C is, who could I get to help me with these decisions? If it's something new, it's probably something that someone has already completed. There might be a book about it. There might be a YouTube video about it. There might be a community about it. Something that I always do when I want to learn something new is I usually get a book about it. I usually start listening also to a podcast about it. Usually start YouTubing about it. And I try to get either a mentor or a conversation with somebody about it. And the reason for that is I want to learn all of these different ways so that I can understand what this thing really is. When I wanted to learn editing on a computer, and I'm not a pro yet, the first thing I did was I started YouTubing videos. And then actually, I would YouTube the video and then I would go play around with it. I wanted to make some mistakes. I wanted to be okay getting my hands in it. Then I would ask people for help. I would listen to podcasts. I would watch people do it. That's a way to start tackling the fear of the unknown. Because staying where you're at is not helping you at all. Staying the same is probably doing more damage to you than you think. You have to be willing to say, hey, what's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? Who can I get to help me? With the world having so many ways to be in communities, it's almost impossible not to be able to get some answers. There's a community for almost everything. And that's really, really good. My last part for you guys today would be ask yourself, why do I actually have this fear? What am I really afraid of? Maybe I'm afraid if I start leading that people are going to find out that I don't have all the answers. They probably know already that you don't have all the answers. Maybe I'm afraid that it's going to be more work than required. Let's pause right there, because Instagram and Threads and TikTok and Facebook and X, whatever it's called now, sometimes makes you believe that you are not going to have to work hard. That's one of the biggest lies ever. Yes, you can align, you can manifest, you could get everything in order. Sometimes it's still going to require hard work. Myron Golden always says this: if it's not working for you, it's working on you. It's not a bad thing. But think, why don't I want to actually push through this fear? Am I embarrassed that people are going to find out that I'm not as smart as I've been confessing? Am I afraid that it's going to be more work? Or am I afraid to leave what I know right now? The last one is usually the thing that paralyzes us. I don't want to leave what I know right now. I know how to do A. I know how to do B. I know how to do C. If you make me do something harder, I may fail. You might, but then you might succeed. So I want to push you guys today. Confront the fear. What is the fear that's holding you back? What is the fear that is making you stay still? Will you confront it? Now, I'm going to hold you to it. I want you to send me a message on IG or Facebook, whatever, Coach Drew Cause, and let me know what's the fear you're going to confront. And if you need help, someone to help you look at the fear, confront it and get past it, go to my website, drewcause.com, book a session. We'll help you get through it. Get unstuck, guys. Go be great.